Okay, I want you to picture this scenario. You're in a meeting, it's a Tuesday afternoon, the fluorescent lights are humming away,
Oh, I know this feeling.
right? And a colleague, or maybe even your boss, is pitching this brand new idea.
Mhm.
And as they're talking, your internal monologue is just screaming. You're thinking, no, absolutely not. This is a disaster.
The logistics don't work, the budget isn't there.
We don't have the staff, all of it. But then this panic sets in because you realize the room is quiet and they're looking at you. You have to say something. You have to shut this down.
But you can't be the jerk.
You can't be the office jerk. You don't want to be the dream crusher. So what do you do?
That is the universal workplace nightmare. It's that split-second calculation between, honesty and survival.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. If you learned English from a textbook, you probably think the answer's simple. You think, well, I just need to be clear. So you raise your hand and you say, I disagree.
Which, ironically, is probably the most dangerous thing you could possibly say in that moment.
It's a trap. And that is exactly what we're unpacking today. We're doing a deep dive into some fascinating source material about agreeing and disagreeing like a native at work. And let me tell you, this isn't just about grammar.
No, not at all.
This is the unwritten social code of the corporate world.
It really is. The source material makes a really bold claim right off the bat, which is that the English you learned in school, that crisp, clear, I agree and I disagree, is actually setting you up to fail.
That's the whole textbook trap, isn't it?
Precisely. In a textbook, clarity is king. I disagree is grammatically perfect, it's unambiguous. But in a nuanced social environment like an office, clarity without courtesy is just, well, it's aggression.
It feels like an attack. It's like bringing a megaphone to a library.
That's a great way to put it. The source highlights that saying I disagree to a native English speaker, it just comes across as too direct, too strong, and yeah, bordering on rude. It shuts the conversation down.
Instead of opening it up.
Right. It implies a confrontation, not a collaboration.
So, okay, if I disagree is off the table, what are we left with? And I think that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to decode the art of softening. We're going to look at tone, structure, these little softening words.
And how to navigate conflict without making enemies. And I think it's important to note this is for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're a non-native speaker trying to fit in or a native speaker who's been told they're a bit, blunt.
Or abrasive.
Yeah, abrasive.
Yeah.
The core philosophy here, and this is the first big nugget from our source, is that in English workplace culture, indirectness equals politeness.
Okay, let's unpack that. Indirectness equals politeness. Because I have to play devil's advocate here. For a lot of cultures, and honestly, sometimes for me, indirectness feels a little bit shady.
Manipulative.
Yeah. Manipulative. Like, just say what you mean.
And that's a very valid perspective. In many cultures, directness is a sign of respect. It means I trust you enough to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
But in this specific sort of Anglo-corporate context, think of indirectness as cushioning.
Cushioning.
You rarely say exactly what you mean if the message is negative, because you're trying to save face. You're protecting the other person's ego.
Saving face, that's the key.
It is. And to do that, you have to wrap the message up. The source actually uses a fantastic metaphor for this.
Oh, I know this one. The language sandwich.
The language sandwich. It's a classic for a reason.
I feel like everyone's heard of it, but people still get it wrong. We're not talking about lunch here.
No. Strictly communication, the concept is simple, but the execution is where people trip up. So you've got the top layer, the bun, that's your validation or compliment. You have to start positive. The middle layer, the meat or, the tofu is your actual opinion, the critique, and then the bottom layer is a positive ending to hold it all together.
All right, let's use a concrete example from the source, see how it sounds in the wild. Let's say someone presents a project plan and you just know it's going to fail. The blunt version, the non-sandwich version would be, that plan won't work.
Ouch. Just hear you say that makes me tense up.
Right.
It's so final. It implies you're wrong and I'm right. There's an intellectual slap in the face.
It stings. Now let's apply the sandwich method. Based on the source, how do we fix this disaster?
Okay, so first, we need that top layer. We need to validate their intent. You have to find something true that you can validate. So you might say, I see what you're trying to do.
Okay, I see what you're trying to do. You're acknowledging they aren't totally crazy. Now, the meat, the critique.
But I'm not sure this approach will work.
Hold on. I'm not sure this approach will work. Notice that. You didn't say it won't work. You said, I'm not sure.
Exactly. And then you land it softly with the bottom bun, maybe something like, but I really appreciate the effort on this. But let's look at that middle part again. I'm not sure versus it won't.
The meaning is identical, isn't it? You're still saying, we're not doing this plan.
The informational content is identical.
Mm.
The emotional content is totally different. The blunt version attacks the idea, and by extension, the person.
Yeah.
The sandwich version validates the person first. I see what you're trying to do, and then expresses a personal hesitation. I'm not sure. Rather than an objective fact, it saves face for everyone.
It sounds like it prevents the other person from getting defensive. If I say you're wrong, you have to fight me. If I say I'm not sure, you just have to, explain it to me better?
Bingo. If you make someone lose face in a meeting, you might win the argument, but you've lost an ally. You've burned some serious capital.
So the sandwich isn't just fluff, it's strategic. Okay, let's pivot. We've talked about disagreeing, but surely agreeing is easy. If I like an idea, can't I just sit back and say, I agree, right? Or is that also a trap?
You can.
Yeah.
But again, does it sound natural? Does it sound like a colleague you want to grab coffee with? The source points out that I agree with you can sound a bit robotic.
It sounds like you're in a courtroom. I concur with the statement.
Right. It creates distance.
Yeah.
The source lists some much more natural, casual alternatives. Things like, yeah, exactly, or that makes sense.
That makes sense. I feel like I use that one 50 times a day.
It's a great one because it validates the other person's logic. You're praising their thinking. Or even stronger, I totally agree with that. Or my favorite, I was thinking the same thing.
I was thinking the same thing is great because it creates this shared bond, like we're on the same wavelength.
Exactly. These phrases are short, relaxed. They signal immediate alignment.
Right.
But there's a level-up move here that the source identifies. It's not just about nodding. It's the yes and strategy.
Oh, the improv comedy rule.
It is, but it works in the boardroom too. It's about building on the idea, not just passively accepting it. So instead of just, I agree, you say, yeah, and we could also...
That is such a subtle shift, but it's so powerful. Because I agree is a full stop. It ends the sentence.
Yeah, and...
Or keeps the ball rolling.
It shows active cooperation. You aren't just a rubber stamp, you're a collaborator. You're adding value.
Let's look at the example from the source. The scenario is a deadline change. Someone suggests we should move the deadline to Friday.
Okay. A robotic response would be, I agree, Friday is better.
Boring. And it kind of sounds like you just want the meeting to end.
Right. But the natural response would be something like, yeah, that makes sense. Friday works better.
It just flows. It feels like a conversation.
And if you wanted to use that yes and strategy, you might add, yeah, Friday works better, and that'll give us time to do a final review.
Boom! Now you're a team player. You've justified the change, added a benefit. Okay, so agreeing is about being natural and collaborative. Now we got to go back to the danger zone.
Okay.
We talked about the sandwich, but let's get into the nitty-gritty of disagreeing without using the D word.
The source is very, very clear on rule number 1 of disagreeing. Do not start with the word no.
Never. That seems almost impossible.
Almost never. No is a stop sign. It just slams the brakes on the discussion. Even if you're thinking no, leading with it creates instant friction.
So if someone says, we should launch next week, and I know the product is broken, I can't just say, no, we can't.
You really shouldn't. You need to use the pivot.
We talked about validation earlier, but let's look at the specific phrases the source recommends for this.
This is the toolkit.
The toolkit of soft disagreement. The heavy hitters are phrases like, I see what you mean, but, or, I get your point, however, or, my favorite, that's a good idea, but.
It's always yes, B-U-T, isn't it? I see it, B-U-T.
It is. You validate the logic, then you introduce the concern. But there's one specific phrase the source highlights that I think is the MVP of office disagreements.
I think I know which one you mean. Is it, I'm not sure?
That's the one. I'm not sure that's the best option.
I love this phrase because it is so incredibly deceptive.
It really is.
Because when I say I'm not sure that's the best option, what I usually mean in my head is that is the worst option I have ever heard in my life.
Precisely. But here's why it works. I'm not sure provides a safety buffer. It frames your objection as a personal hesitation, like maybe I'm missing something, rather than an objective fact.
It invites the other person to convince you, rather than just telling them they're wrong.
It lowers the stakes. It turns a fight into a discussion.
So let's break down that launch next week example. The proposal is we should launch next week. The soft disagreement is, I see what you mean, but I'm a little concerned about the timing.
I'm a little concerned. That's so much gentler than the timing is bad.
And notice what happened there. You clearly disagreed. You are not launching next week. But you never used a negative word. You didn't say no, won't, can't, or bad.
You used see, mean, concerned. It's verbal judo. You're redirecting the energy.
And that leads us perfectly into the next layer of this. We've covered the structure, the sandwich, the pivot. Now we need to talk about the seasoning.
The softeners, or as the linguists call them, hedging.
Hedging. It sounds like gardening, but it's really about protection. These are just small words that reduce the impact of a sentence.
We're talking about words like maybe a bit, kind of, a little.
Tiny words, huge impact.
The source gives a great comparison here. I want everyone listening to really feel the difference. Sentence A, this is expensive.
Sentence A feels like an accusation. This is expensive. It's a judgment. It sounds like you made a mistake.
Okay, sentence B, this is a bit expensive.
This is a bit expensive. Feels like an observation. It implies it's negotiable.
It leaves the door open. How about this one? Direct. We need more time. Softened. I think we might need more time.
I think we might. You've added 2 softeners there. I think and might.
Okay, but I have to ask, does that make me sound weak? I think we might. It sounds unconfident. If I'm a leader, don't I need to be decisive?
That is the common fear. If I hedge, I look weak. But in a professional context, it actually makes you sound considered and reasonable. A demanding person says, we need more time. A professional partner says, I think we might need more time.
So it's not about a lack of confidence, it's about a lack of aggression.
Exactly. You are still asking for the time. You aren't backing down. You're just doing it in a way that makes it easier for your boss to say yes without feeling challenged.
I love that distinction. Okay, we've got the theory. Sandwich, natural agreement, the pivot, softeners. Now we have to put it to the test.
It's role play time.
I'm going to throw a scenario at you. Let's use the ones from the source and we can break them down.
Let's do it.
Scenario 1, hiring. You're in a budget meeting. It's tense. Someone says, I think we should hire 2 more people for the marketing team. You know the bank account is empty.
Meh.
How do you respond?
Okay, so looking at the source's recommendation, the ideal response would be something like, that's a good point. I'm just not sure we have the budget right now.
Break down that play for me. Why does that work so well?
You start with the top bun. That's a good point. You validate their desire. Hiring more people is a reasonable idea.
You're not calling him crazy.
No. Then the pivot with the softener. I'm just not sure we have the budget right now.
Just not sure. We don't have the budget.
Right. We don't have the budget shuts the door. It makes you the villain. Yeah. I'm just not sure. Invites the other person to check the numbers with you. The outcome is the same. No hiring. But the relationship stays intact.
So they feel like you're on their side, fighting the numbers rather than fighting them?
Exactly.
Okay, scenario 2. This one's high stakes. The client meeting. Your boss, the person who signs your checks, says, we should cancel the client meeting. You think that's a terrible idea? The client will be furious.
Ooh, tricky. Here's the soft approach. I see what you mean, but maybe we could shorten it instead.
Oh, nice.
You've got the validation. I see what you mean.
Sure.
Maybe the boss is busy. Maybe they're stressed. You acknowledge that. Then you introduce an alternative solution with the ultimate softener. Maybe?
Maybe we could. It's not a demand.
It turns a disagreement into a suggestion. You're not blocking the boss. You're helping them solve the problem.
That is the key, isn't it? Turning a block into a build.
And that highlights the biggest mistake the source warns against.
Which one? There are 2 big ones.
Well, the first is being too direct, saying you're wrong. We've covered that. But the second mistake is even more common, especially for, non-native speakers or people who lack confidence.
Staying silent.
Yes. Just sitting there, hating the idea, visualizing the disaster that's about to happen, but saying nothing because you're afraid your English isn't perfect or you don't know the fancy words.
And the source says, you don't need fancy words.
You don't. Simple, soft phrases are better than silence. If you stay silent, the bad idea happens. If you say, I see what you mean, but I'm not sure, you start a conversation. You pause the train.
That's empowering. You don't need to be Shakespeare. You just need to be a sandwich artist.
A sandwich artist. I like that title.
So let's wrap this up with a cheat sheet for our listeners. If you're stepping into a meeting in 10 minutes, what do you need to write on the back of your hand?
Okay, quick recap. If you agree, don't just say, I agree. Say, that makes sense, or exactly. Or use the yes and method.
Build on it.
If you disagree, never start with no. Say, I see what you mean, but. Or, I'm not sure about that.
And what's the last one?
And finally, season everything liberally with softeners. Maybe. A bit. I think.
So that plan is a bit risky is better than that plan is dangerous.
Always. Every single time.
This has been such a fascinating look at the hidden mechanics of office talk. It really makes you realize that language isn't just about exchanging information.
At all.
It's about managing feelings.
It is. It's about emotional intelligence encoded into grammar. The goal isn't just to be understood, it's to be heard. And people hear you better when they don't feel attacked.
So true. Now, before we sign off, here's something to chew on. We've spent this whole deep dive talking about how being indirect is the polite way to do things in an English-speaking office.
Right. The social code.
But I want you, the listener, to think about your own background. In many cultures, being this soft might be seen as weak or even manipulative. Does the sandwich taste good to everyone, or does it taste like fake politeness?
That is the million-dollar question. Is it true courtesy? Or is it just a complicated dance to hide the truth?
Think about that the next time someone tells you they're not sure about your idea. Are they unsure? Or are they just being polite? Thanks for diving in with us.
See you next time.